Hey y'all, we are back for another episode of Raw with the Purpose. My name is Titani Harris, psychotherapist, author, speaker, CEO of TMH Behavioral Services, and founder of TMH Man Cave.
Hey y'all, I'm Latasha Davis, Vice President of TMH Behavioral Services, couples, marriage, and family, and relationship expert.
Hey.
Hey girl.
How you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Okay.
How are you doing? Because you always flipping it on me. How you doing?
Thank you for asking. People rarely ask me how I'm doing. I am hanging in there. It's a lot going on, but I am hanging in there. Happy to be doing this episode. It's I've been thinking about this episode for a while. Parental wounds and how do we heal from them, and I know it's a heavy topic today, y'all. So just want to give you all a disclaimer that if you need to step away, some of this may resonate with you, some of it may not, but we want to give you guys a glimpse into some personal things and also some professional words for you and just some encouragement on how you can heal from parental wounds.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are parental wounds? So you may hear people talk about, oh, she got mommy issues or he got daddy issues, and you know, that's real.
Right.
But one thing about parental wounds, they affect more than just your individual relationships. So parental wounds are basically when you grow up with parents, and that can be aunties, uncles, grandmothers, traditional mom and dad, caregivers, yes. Right? When you grow with parents who you didn't feel connected with, who you didn't feel like nurtured you, and the relationship is strained, and that affects the way we make decisions. It makes us want to have approval from others. It makes us hypersensitive to criticism. It instills in us a fear of abandonment, and it also may cause us to have poor boundaries. Tasha, you want to speak more than that, like what that looks like?
So when we talk about like poor boundaries, like we probably enmeshing ourselves in relationships. We're attaching ourselves at the littlest things because we have that abandonment issue, right? Or if you have abandonment issues, you are quick to leave. If you see something that's not looking right or feeling right, you're like, I'm out here.
Exactly.
I'm done. Like I'm going to get out before you get out. I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me. That's that mentality.
So and so one of the things that I want us to talk about in this episode, and I can start, is parental wounds. And I am someone who, you know, most people have one parent that they struggle with in their healing with parental wounds.
Maybe this was make that you have a unique story. This is really different because some people have that one parent. And you have both biological parents.
So I am someone who is still working through my parental wounds. But for me, and just to kind of condense it a little bit, so my biological parents, I do not have the best relationships with either of them. My biological father, we don't talk at all currently, but my mom, we're working on a friendship. And for me, it's been very interesting, not even interesting, but it's been a long road in healing from that. Because when I stop and think about, wow, I really don't have a connection with either one of my biological parents, and they're both alive, it kind of makes me get in my feelings a little bit. But I think therapy has really helped with that, and also just having a wonderful village. I think for me also, how it affected me in my relationships, especially my intimate relationships, I think I was always looking for someone to love me, right? And not understanding my self-love. I know with the relationship with my mother, it affected my female relationships in terms of having friendships and not trusting women because of my relationship with my mother. I've also struggled with having parental issues, but having such great angel parents. And when I talk about my angel parents, these are my parents who have guided me and loved me and just been there for me. Shout out to Tina and Joshi Fakhreddin. And they've been amazing in taking on that role for me. But I still believe there's part of me that's still healing from the biological wounds of not having that familiar connection biologically with my parents. My mother was very young when she had me. And so I want to say that that's part of it. As some of you all may know, I also grew up in DCFS, and so that affected our relationship as well. And honestly, I didn't meet my biological father until I was a full adult, and that was challenging in itself. But I say all that to say is that the reason why I believe parental wounds are hard to heal from is because your parents are the first people that teach you about relationships. And
the family dynamics.
And so I don't want folks to feel like you have to get over it, but you do want to get through it, right? And in terms of just, I always like to say, like, acceptance is no longer needing a why. And what I mean is, for me, like, I've accepted that I don't have this relationship with my parents. And how do I know that? Because I don't need to understand why it's not there. You know, I used to say, like, oh, my parents couldn't give me what they didn't have. And that still may be true, but that still doesn't take away from them not doing what was needed to care for me.
And I think for me, I feel like my parental wounds came later down the line, like maybe when I was a teenager.
Oh, wow.
So I had grew up in a 2-parent household initially.
Okay.
And then around my teenage years is when my mom and my dad divorced.
Okay.
And so for me, I feel like because I was so close to my mom and I was close to my dad, but I think because that hurt, I've seen so much on my mom's side, like I was visibly there to see that, it definitely impacted me.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of times as kids, we do take on a protective factor of our parents, even though they're the parents and they're not. And my mom didn't make me take the protective factor. I just think initially I just drawn to that side, just because I've seen the hurt visibly, like on her side of it, of things. Because when they divorced, of course, I moved in. I was with my mom. I lived with my mom, me and my brother. So I've seen a lot of that hurt right in her face. So I think that kind of definitely like burdened me a little bit, because it was just a lot to see your parent hurting the way they're hurting.
It's almost like you carried her hurt for her.
Yeah.
And do you think it affected y'all relationship?
My mom's? Me and my mom's. I don't think it affected our relationship as far as like initially, like carrying her hurt. Initially, I didn't think it was like, you know, I don't think I even knew that's what I was doing initially. I think a lot of times we don't even know we're doing
I mean, like, even now as a full adult, when you think back to that time in your life, do you think like it's affected y'all relationship? And you guys have a pretty good, really good relationship.
We have a really close relationship.
I love the y'all when y'all go get y'all nails done and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's our thing. We'll go get our we do that. That's our thing. But I don't think it like affected us with what happened. I think it affect us in the way of how we are healing. And when I say how we're healing, sometimes we can have good days and bad days of what we experience. So I think that makes it a little difficult, but I don't think it's like a attack on me and her relationship. I just think sometimes you just have those flashbacks. You have those moments of, man, this is what it could have been. You know, why couldn't this person be that person for me when I needed them to be that person? Why could that man be that type of husband? Why could that man be that type of father in that moment? And I mean, I don't know. My dad probably going through some stuff, his own stuff. You know, everybody got their own things going on, and as kids you don't know, because you only know what you see. I was gonna say, like, I think our parents, and I'll just speak from my experience when I think about both of my parents, and we haven't talked extensively, I haven't talked to neither one of them extensively about how they grew up. I have an idea, and I understand that certain things may have happened for them, and so they never worked through their own trauma and their own things with their parents, so they weren't able to give me something that they probably didn't understand what to give. But again, that doesn't negate the fact that they didn't take responsibility or nurture me the way I wanted to be nurtured, or the way I needed to be nurtured as a young child. So I think, this topic is so heavy. It's a lot of layers to it. And it is a lot of layers, and I want people to understand that, you know, especially parents now, like people who have kids, like, you don't have to repeat the cycle, right? That intergenerational trauma of how we were parenting. And I see it now, like, you got all this soft parenting, and that's a whole nother topic, because some of these kids, maybe they need a little bit of that hard parenting. But no, I think it's okay to acknowledge, like, okay, I'm still healing from my parental wounds, but I want to be better for my children. And I think another piece, I know what people always ask me, why am I in this field? A big piece is because of my family. I think I fell into it. Because this was not my initial plan. My initial plan was to be a pediatrician. But, you know, I went to Carbondale. I partied a little too hard. So I had to move the degree. So I thought about what I wanted to do, and I said, what is something natural to me? And that's when I came into psychology, because it felt very natural. And then when I took the classes, this really gravitated to me. And I don't know why this specific lane gravitated to me, but I think as I was learning about it and doing it, it made sense. Because I think I wanted answers.
Yeah.
I think I needed clarity. So to understand, not just from being a person inside of it, but being on the outside to really understand the background, the understanding of what took place or what happened or what was the disconnect.
Yeah.
So I think that really helped me understand probably what went wrong or went on. It still doesn't take away from what the experience was, but it made me have a more understanding.
I would say another way, I think for me, and people may be surprised to hear this, and I'm going to be honest about this, not having the connection to both of my biological parents affected me. I would say specifically early on in my young adulthood, like I would say late teens, early 20s, I always felt like if I go to college, they'll love me. If I get a good job, they'll love me. They'll see that I'm on my own at 17. Maybe that'll make them love me. Like I felt like early on in my career, in my life, I was always trying to do things to make them love me. And I don't know when I realized, like, you know what you've done is enough for you. Right. And you don't need their approval. You know, it sucks, but like, and I'll be transparent, as my dad said one time, he said, I don't know how you've been able to achieve what you've achieved without me and your mother being there. You know, he said that because we didn't do right by you. My dad admitted that. And so it's been a very difficult journey, but a necessary journey as I've navigated these parental wounds. But like you, I came into the field probably for the same reason. Like I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. Like I wanted to be on sports. I wanted to be on television talking about sports. Like anybody who know me know I love sports and love to talk sports. And so, but that wasn't the lane that God had for me. I tell people this field chose me. I didn't choose this field. But I'm so glad that it did, because I feel like I've become the therapist I've needed, the mom I've needed, the sister I've needed. Like, you know, I always say I am who I needed. And going through some of my changes, I didn't have therapists, right? And I think the few times that I did, there was no connection for me. And I don't necessarily believe you have to go through things to be a good therapist. Let me just make that clear. But I do think it gives us a different lens when you've experienced certain traumas. Like I always have these conversations with my other therapist friends about how I really do good inner child work. Like I love doing that work because I still, on some certain level, I'm still healing from my inner child. So I really do well in that work, and I'm happy, and I get to see like my clients heal, because I'm like, well, I kind of struggle with the same thing. They don't know that, but heck, now they know it. Now they're probably gonna be like, oh, okay. But I think that this is something that I think a conversation we need to continuously have. And again, I also want to add that, and this is where I struggle with, like, as an adult, you always hear people say, like, some of y'all still blaming your parents for what happened. I would challenge people and say, you know, you can still blame them, but now that you're an adult, what are you going to do for you?
What are you going to do different?
What are you going to do? And, you know, you have to sort of create your own family and create your own village. And it's like, because one thing I've learned is they're going to move on, whether you're healed or not. They're going to live their lives. They're going to move on. They're going to do what's best for them, essentially. But what are you going to do for you? And then just kind of doing some of this family work, because I do a lot of that relationship. And I just was kind of chiming in with you before we got started and got a little emotional about it. Just thinking about it, because when this incident played out in front of me in a family session. And it was a teen girl talking to her mom. Well, not even teen, she was like 19. You know, and she was talking to her mom, and her mom, she felt as though her mom was not taking responsibility or accountability for what took place. It was things that occurred, like trauma-wise. That her mom had no recollection or did not acknowledge, and she was just fuming, and she was getting mad and I'm trying to calm her down, and she just lashed out. And she said, you don't get it. You're never going to understand. You're never going to take accountability and responsibility for what you did. You did this. And it was so real for me that I connected to that moment, because I remember having a similar moment when I was really upset with my dad in my teenage years. I don't know what took place. Something happened.
And I just lashed out. Like, I just said everything I wanted to say because I could never, I'm just a quiet person. I think it was just like,
I used to be quiet.
Yeah. Hold on. Near here, there.
Go ahead.
But I was not expressive with my feelings at that time. So I'm very much, at that time, I would just hold things in. And I think, we all have those boiling points. And I don't know what it was, but I got so upset with him. And I just blurred everything I felt and over years of probably what I was experiencing.
Wow.
And it's like the room just got quiet. Like it was just a very emotional experience for me. It was like I finally got to say what I wanted to say because I'm covering myself, I'm covering mom, I'm protecting everybody.
Yep.
I feel like I was protecting everybody. And like I said, it's nothing that was made to do. I just felt like I fell into that role. So when she had that moment, I was like, wow, I remember that moment. I remember being that child who was so upset that their parent didn't take accountability. And sometimes accountability for our parents is just acknowledgement. It's not really taking responsibility. It's just acknowledging it happened. Or it's the excuses behind it.
I was going to say, I'm not going to say which parent of mine, but like, I'm so glad you brought up acknowledgement because I did have a conversation with both of my parents about 2 years ago, just about how I felt about my life and what they had not done. And one parent was like, you right. And the other parent was like, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Right,
like, I hope what we didn't do didn't keep you from doing what you need to do. And I realized at that point that they would not be a part of my healing journey, and I was okay with that because I kept reminding myself, this is about you. This is about your journey. This is about your life. This is about your legacy and how you're going to make an impact. And you can't let what didn't happen keep you from what God wants to happen.
And that's probably, like I said, that's the most you may ever get. Is an acknowledgement. And that's something you just have to take in stride and do your part. And I think you did make a great point because I was going to that next point of saying that part of the healing journey is not for them, it's for you. So if you're writing a letter, if you're having a direct conversation, it's about what you've been holding back for all this time and just say, I need to get it out. Whether you agree with it or not, I cannot hold this burden anymore. One
of the things that I do with clients in session when we've done inner child work is I have them write, people hear about, writing letters to your younger self. I have my clients write as their younger selves to their parents. So I have them write the letter and they don't have to share it with me, but I have them fold it up and put it in a jar. And after like the 5th or 6th session, I have them read it so they can understand like the journey, and it's really a really powerful tool.
That sounds powerful.
I work with a lot of men, so they're always a little hesitant, but I always feel like that's a therapeutic intervention that it's like a sense of relief because you can't go back in time, but you can get it out the way that you see fit. But as we wrap up, there are some things that I want to share with our audience about. So we've talked about, parental wounds and shared some of our experience. And thank you for being, for sharing your experience.
Thank you for sharing your experience.
And because I know it's not easy. And I know for me, before I get to those tips, like I was kind of hesitant to share. And you know how I am, because I used to struggle with like sharing parts of my story because I didn't want people to see me for my trauma. I wanted people to see me for who I am, but I realized that it's a part of my story, but it doesn't have to be my entire story.
And that's my tagline for my clients. I always say, you are not your trauma.
And
your trauma just happened.
And for me, like I realized that this is part of my testimony, this test. And, if I can, encourage somebody and they can see me and see like what I've been through or hear it, then they can be inspired. But I want people to know, like, number one, you don't need your parents to heal.
Nope.
You don't. I am someone who haven't hit my parents on this healing journey and I am still healing. I think healing is lifelong, right?
Continuous.
Also, healing looks different for everyone. So healing could also be learning what's important to you in terms of having that connection. And what I mean is, if you are someone who says, I want to have a better relationship with my mom or my dad or both, you have to decide what that looks like for you first before you even engage with that. And maybe that's through therapy, maybe that's on your own, self-reflection and things like that, but deciding, okay, what do I want this to look like for me outside of them? Also, healing can also be being in the same room without having these anxious feelings. Like I know for me, with one of my parents, they used to trigger me. I would get around them and my anxiety would just be on 10, but now that doesn't happen. And I realized, like, man, I'm really healing from this. Like, they don't trigger me as much because I'm working on my own healing. And then, but also healing could also be saying, you know what? I don't desire a relationship with this person because they do trigger me or because they do affect my mental health, you know. And so for me and one of my parents, that is the case. We have limited contact because there is still some hurt there. And so to protect myself, I set really, really good boundaries.
Yeah. And I was just kind of reiterate some of the things I already had said, but I always say that acknowledgement is probably the most you may get, and we have to be accepting of that. And being accepting, I think you kind of said the same thing, be accepting of where that person is in that moment. And you have to know this is the most they may be ever to give you. And you just do what you can in that moment.
Exactly.
Accept what it is in that moment. And just making sure to take care of you.
Yes.
You got to take care of you, okay? And just knowing that, you know, giving our parents grace, because like you said, you made a good point too at some point, is that some things happen in their past that they, and it's an intergenerational thing, but that does not excuse. So we can give grace, but it does not excuse what happened and what you experienced.
Or negate what you experienced.
Yes.
And as we wrap up, I'll just leave it with one last thing. And you said this, but I want to just reiterate it, is that healing is not for you. Healing is for you, right? Healing is for you and not them. When you decide to heal, you have to make it about yourself and not the other person.
And one thing I want to add to that, I said it, but I want to say it again, you are not your trauma. Your trauma just happened to you.
I love that. So as we wrap up, thank you guys for listening. We want to make sure that you follow us on all social media. Raw with a Purpose on IG and Facebook. Titania Harris on all social media. TMH Man Cave on all social media. TMH Behavioral Services on all social media. I know we have a lot going on. We want to make sure y'all stay connected.
All right. And I'm on IG, Latasha D29. Also, we have rawwithapurpose@gmail.com, and we also have rawwithapurpose at rawwithapurpose.com.
And if you guys want to share any feedback with us regarding this episode, somebody has questions, want to make a comment, feel free to email us. Feel free to post it on our page. We would love to hear your comments and feedback. But that's a wrap.
All right.
See y'all.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, now you say it.